What's going on, guys? How are you? You good? Hey, like Brandon said, I'm pretty pumped up today because we're starting a new series and we're calling it Kingdom Culture. And really what we're going to get at in this series is more clarity on who we are as a church. Like, who's God asking us to be? Where is he taking us? What direction are we going? What kind of culture do we want to have here? We're really going to be focusing on the how. Like, how does all that happen? How do we do that? How do we get where we're going? So if we're going to focus on the how, the best way for me, I think, to set this up is to actually talk about the where, like where actually are we going? And I'm going to use an illustration that we used a year ago. In fact, we did an entire series on this. So if you were here a year ago, you're going to remember this. You may or may not be familiar with the concept of what scientists call a keystone species in nature. And a keystone species is a particular species in a given ecosystem that all other life rises and falls on. So if an ecosystem has their keystone species, everything can flourish. If it's not there, then that ecosystem is going to suffer, might even die out. Let me give you an example. Yellowstone National Park has a keystone species. Anybody know what it is? Wolves. Yeah, if you were here last year, you cheated. But if you did know that, that's awesome, right? Yeah, wolves are the keystone species in Yellowstone. There's articles written on this, there's documentaries. It's fascinating. Here's what happened. Wolves were completely hunted out of Yellowstone back in the 1920s. And then they were gone for about 70 years until the mid-90s when they were reintroduced into the park. When they were hunted out of the park, here's what happened. The elk and deer population skyrocketed. Which makes sense, right? Your number one predator is gone, those populations are gonna take off. So with this growing population of elk and deer, what happened was they ate all of the grasses, all of the plants, bushes, even small trees. Now that may not seem like a big deal, but really it started to kill the park. Like, the ecosystem in Yellowstone just started tanking over 70 years. Then when scientists decided to reintroduce 31 gray wolves back into the park in 95 and 96, they thought it was going to change the park. They just didn't realize how much it would and how fast it would. Here's what happened. The wolves not only regulated the population of elk and deer, they also changed their behavior. So because wolves were back, elk and deer avoided open areas where they could be trapped, like valleys and meadows and fields. And what that caused was all of the grass was able to grow back. Plants and bushes grew back, even trees grew. Some places, scientists found that trees grew 5 times taller in just 6 years. Like, crazy growth. All of a sudden there were forests of cottonwoods, aspens, and willows all over the place, which brought birds back. All different kinds of bird species came back and started to thrive because they had a place to build their nests. On top of that, the beaver population increased. Beavers eat trees, especially aspens and willows. So the beaver population stabilized and grew. That was a big deal because beavers, I don't know if you know this, they build dams. And beaver dams are incredibly important because they're an excellent habitat for all different kinds of animals. Otters, muskrats, fish, ducks, other reptiles. All of those animals started to grow and flourish throughout the park. And then not only did the wolves kill elk and deer, they also killed coyotes, which allowed the rabbits and the mouse population, mouse or mice population, I don't know, they grew also. Rabbits and mice are one of the primary prey sources for hawks and badgers and weasels, so they grew. Bald eagles even came back and they increased too because now they fed on all the carcasses left behind by wolves. Even the bear population berries on these trees and bushes and plants that had grown up. There was a new food source for them to eat. Bears grew because wolves were there. And then this is where it gets really interesting. This is what I think is really cool. The rivers changed. Because wolves were back and all this regenerated grass and plants and trees, that stabilized the riverbanks and the erosion of rivers stopped. So if you've ever been to Yellowstone, the riverbanks there almost look fake. They look manicured. They're that clearly defined. That's because erosion stopped, which also allowed channels to narrow, forming natural pools all over the park, which is an excellent habitat and helpful for all life in the park. The rivers even changed because of wolves. Like, the ecosystem in Yellowstone was collapsing for 70 years because their keystone species was gone. And then when wolves came back and they do what wolves do. It's all they did. They just acted like wolves. The park flourished and it grew. That's what a keystone species does. Without it, an ecosystem will suffer and maybe even die. With it, everything can flourish. And isn't that exactly what the church is supposed to be? Like, aren't we supposed to be the keystone species that God has placed into the world? Where everybody around us, whenever there's a church anywhere, shouldn't everybody around that church have the opportunity to flourish simply because that church is there? I mean, isn't that all you're the light of the world, you're a city on a hill, you're the salt of the earth talk that Jesus was dropping? He's saying, y'all are supposed to be different. You guys are different. And through you, I'm going to change and transform everything around you that blesses everyone. That's where we're going as a church. Like, we want to see change and transformation happen all around us where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. We're called to be the keystone species. But that kind of change only comes from Jesus, only comes from Jesus. But we as the church, we're called to be his representatives. We're called to be his witnesses. We're called to point people to him. We're called to continue that mission. We're called to be the keystone species. And just like Yellowstone, if you watch Yellowstone for 70 years, how that park was falling apart and dying, and we can see things falling apart around us all the time, can't we? Families are falling apart. I feel like now, my generation, I feel like I'm in the minority because my parents are still married. We see kids without parents. Families are just falling apart. Things are being disintegrated all around us because of the love of money, because of greed. Everybody seems like they're afraid now. You're not surprised anymore when you hear about a mass shooting, are you? Joy? That's been replaced with division. Hope? What's that? There's nothing but hopelessness all around. I mean, that's just scratching the surface. Where we're going as a church is to see all that changed and transformed through the gospel. Like, where we're going as a church is we want to see more people than we could possibly imagine come to saving faith in Jesus. And then growing in their relationship with him through discipleship. And then recognizing the gifts that God has specifically given that individual person and what purpose he's called them to, equip them and unleash them into that. We want to see families transform for generations, where justice becomes the normal thing, where hope and joy are commonplace, where kids thrive instead of being manipulated and used to accomplish someone or something else's agenda. Now we want to see disciples multiplied and multiplied and multiplied and released, leaders trained up and equipped so that they make everything around them better. Like, we want to see a place where single moms are supported and propelled and where every fatherless child has a godly man investing in their life. And that's just starting where we're going as a church. Like, we want to be the keystone species in our Yellowstone, which is northern Colorado. We want everyone that calls LifeBridge home to be the keystone species in your Yellowstone. That's your circles of influence. Yellowstone was transformed with just 31 wolves. That's all that it took. Jesus changed the world and history with 12 people. Think about what we could do in northern Colorado then with as many people as we have in our church. And the sky's the limit. Where we're going is to see people, families, and generations, places all around us transformed by the gospel. But how do we get there? Like, how do you and I know what our own role is? How do we own our individual roles in this and take it up? Well, the answer is our values. Our values are how we know where to go and and our guide going there. Really, this series is going to be a vision of our values. Because every individual, every organization, every group, every team, even every church has values. Now, whether they can articulate them or not, that just depends. Every church has values and they cannot be ambiguous. We can't say, oh, we value a feeling or we value community. Yeah, that's great, but we've got to be able to look at our values. They've got to be doable. We've got to be able to write them on the wall and point to them and say, yeah, we're doing that. We're doing that. Or actually, no, we're not. We better get after it. This should be true of any church, more so of the church, because we've got the most important news anyone's ever heard. We've got the best mission that anyone could ever imagine. We're here, we exist to introduce people to Jesus and then lead them in their next steps with them. And if we're doing that, I promise you, if we're doing that, we will see northern Colorado transform like Yellowstone was. Our values are what guide us there. Values allow us to end up somewhere on purpose. That's what's behind our values, is we want to end up somewhere on purpose. So really, our staff has gone through a process where we just kind of tried to pull out what we believed God is putting onto our church, the values God's placed on our church. At one point, we had an entire whiteboard filled with ideas, and after a lot of prayer, a lot of discussion, it was really clear to us that we have 6. That was 2 years ago. And we've been working through this as a staff for 2 years, trying to get better at these, trying to live these out ourselves before we ever brought them to the rest of the church, because we want these to seep into the culture of our church. Well, now it's gotten to the point where we need to talk about them as a group. Here's who we are. Here's where we're going. Here's what we want everyone in our church that calls LifeBridge home. We want us to own these, so not only as individuals, we don't just wander through life, but we actually end up somewhere on purpose. That's where we're going with this series. You good with that? You cool? You want to go with this? Cool. You want here? Okay. I just want to check from time to time to see if you're with me, all right? So let me give you the first one. Here's our first value. It's go for the bronze. Go for the bronze. Which maybe sounds a little bit weird at first, right? Are we setting the bar very low? Do we just not have high expectations here? Is that what we're doing? Shouldn't we go for the gold in that kind of a thing? Well, yeah, going for the gold is great if we have our priorities straight. Honest question. How many of you struggle with priorities? Raise your hand. And don't leave me hanging here, because I know some of you do, all right? It's easy to do, right? Like maybe you prioritize the wrong thing, or you give too much weight to something else. It's an easy trap to fall into. Maybe you focus on the urgent instead of the important. I'm reading a book right now from President Eisenhower, and he said, what is urgent is seldom important, and what is important is seldom urgent. It's a trap that I easily fall into. Focusing on the urgent instead of the important. A lot of times those two things are different. And I can do it because the pace of my life, or current circumstances, or I just lose focus. It's an easy trap to fall into. And maybe what we all fall into, the most common pitfall that we run into is that we assign the wrong weight to the wrong metals. Like maybe what we think is gold is actually bronze, or maybe it's not a metal at all. Or maybe what we think is gold is actually fool's gold. So here's how we say, as a staff, here's what we say go for the bronze means. This is how we put it. We will pursue healthy relationships before ministry by personally prioritizing Jesus first, our family second, and LifeBridge third. Jesus gets the gold, our families get the silver, LifeBridge gets the bronze. Here's the principle behind that for you and for me. Jesus is first, family is second, work comes third. Here's where that comes from. It's Philippians 3. I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them to be worthless because of what Christ has done. Well, what's worthless? That's a big statement right there. This is Paul, and he's writing to the Philippian church. The reason he's writing this is because he knows this church is about to get hit up with some mixed messages. There's a group of people that's coming that's going to sell them a bill of goods, that's going to mix up their priorities, that's going to tell them about this agenda that they've got. And this group of people think that because of their accomplishments and because of their resume, they've got the authority to do this. So they're going to make an argument. They're going to make an argument from the stance of authority. Now, the problem with this approach is Paul's resume blows theirs away. He says, okay, all right, you want to compare resumes? I win. I win. I used to think those things were valuable. Absolutely, I totally did. So which one do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about how my status is higher than everybody else's? Is that what you want to talk about? Or you want to talk about my education that is elite? How about my success, which is unrivaled? Or my accomplishments, which are envied? Or all the stuff that I've accumulated, which is still talked about? Or do you want to talk about my work ethic and my dedication to my work, which is celebrated by everybody? Which one do you want to talk about? I used to think those things were valuable. I really did. Now I know they're worthless. Why? And then so matter-of-factly, he just looks at him and says, well, because of what Jesus has done. He keeps going. Yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, so that I could gain Christ and become one with him. Verse 10, I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. Those are strong words, aren't they? And this is coming from the guy that's at the top of his context. The guy that's in a position that everybody else envies, everybody else aspires to, that guy that's checked all the boxes, that guy says all that stuff, it sounds good, but it's worthless. It's garbage compared to knowing Jesus. And that's a big statement. And the only way that you can make that statement is if you've experienced knowing Jesus. There is nothing in this world that comes remotely close to knowing Jesus and experiencing his power. Nothing has more value than knowing Jesus. If you hear me say one thing today, hear that. There is nothing that has more value than knowing Jesus. Not knowing about him, but knowing him personally and experiencing his power. Knowing Jesus in a relationship and experiencing his power has infinite value. But what if we misplace our value? I mean, it's easy to do. What if we get our priorities wrong? What if we value things that get us ahead in life, or things that get us ahead of other people, or get us ahead in our own personal ambitions, or ahead in comfort? Like, what happens when we value those things? What happens when we get our priorities wrong? Well, the simplest way I can break it down is this. If you misplace your value, you will misplace your priorities. And if you misplace your priorities, you will end up in a place that you don't want to be. Everybody in this world has a hierarchy of what's valuable to them, of what's most important to them. Maybe it's success, friendship, and adventures. Or maybe it's your spouse, your job, and sports. Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's success, maybe it's learning. Everybody has a hierarchy of value. You have a hierarchy in your life. You do, I do too. Something for you gets the gold medal, then gets the silver medal, then gets the bronze level. I don't know what ranks where for you, but I do know this. Jesus is meant to get the gold medal from you. Jesus is meant to get the gold medal from you. You were designed for that. He's meant to be first for you. And maybe this is all new to you. Maybe you believe that. Maybe you're with me on that. Maybe you're here and you think all of this is a joke. And the only reason you are here is because you're trying to get somebody off your back that keeps inviting you and they promise you free lunch afterwards. That happens a lot, actually. All I know is that you were meant to be with Jesus first. And the reason I know that, and the reason I can confidently say that, and even make little jokes right there about that, is because you're created in the image of God. Jesus is God. You're created in his image, meant to enjoy an eternal relationship with him, walking with him, glorifying him, knowing him, being shaped by him, becoming more like him, then unleashed into a purpose that he has specifically for you. You're meant for that. There's infinite value in that. You were meant to have Jesus first, but so many times we put other things in that top spot. If we reprioritize our lives and take Jesus out of the gold medal spot, not only are you going to miss out on that infinite value that Paul talks about, it's also going to lead to some heartache. Because anything that you put in the number one spot in your life, everybody has one number one spot. Anything you put in that top spot, what you're essentially doing is you're trying to make that into a deity. You're making a god out of it. And it could be good things. Could be your spouse, could be a career, could be your kids, could be sports, could be a hobby, could be substances, could be becoming an influencer. You can put anything in that number one spot, and whatever it is that you do, you are making a deity out of it. The problem with that is this: anything that you deify, you will eventually demonize. Anything that you deify, that you turn into a god that's an idol in your life, you're gonna eventually demonize it because you're gonna realize it doesn't fulfill. It can't hold up to that weight of that number one spot. It doesn't bring you the fulfillment you're looking for, or the joy that you're looking for, or the satisfaction or the purpose that you're craving. Nothing can hold up underneath that weight. And you should expect that kind of fulfillment. You're wired to expect that kind of fulfillment, that kind of joy, that kind of satisfaction, that kind of purpose out of the number one spot in your life, because that's meant for Jesus. And that's what happens when you know Jesus. But when you put anything else up there, it can't hold up to that weight. And you'll be disappointed by it. And if you leave it there, you're eventually going to despise it. And if it stays there any longer, you're going to demonize it. Let me give you an example. I love my wife. She's awesome. I'm a big fan. I don't know why you're laughing at that. I think she's in here right now. She's probably hurt her feelings. Anyway, love her. She's awesome, but she's not perfect. Not even close. And she would tell you that. And if I make her the number one thing in my life, which I think sounds good, we're supposed to do that, right? Like, baby, you're number one. Nothing in my life is better than you. You're my top priority. That's like 97.4% of every love song. Baby, you're number one. But if I put her in that spot, she can't hold up. Because with first place attention comes God-sized expectations. Kelly can't hold that weight. She can't fulfill me like Jesus can. She can't bring me the joy that Jesus does. She can't bring me the purpose that Jesus does. And then when your spouse disappoints you, not if, when your spouse disappoints you, if they're number one in your life, then that's gonna feel like such a greater loss because now it feels like your God has disappointed you. They can't do that. Don't do that to your spouse. It's not fair. Man, when I see marriages fall apart, if you trace back their entire story, you see this as a crack at the foundation almost every time. This expectation. It's never spoken expectation. Maybe it's not even cognitively, we don't even realize it. But there's this expectation that my spouse is gonna completely fulfill me. That my spouse is gonna satisfy me above everything else. That these feelings I have, they're gonna produce the real joy, the real happiness. They're gonna bring me the ultimate purpose. There's that expectation there. And then when the spouse disappoints the other spouse, when it happens, and you realize, man, I can't get the fulfillment I'm looking for out of my spouse. I can't get the satisfaction or the level of joy that I want or the purpose that I want. Then we start to think, well, it's gotta be something wrong with this person. Not my expectation, but this person is wrong. So I need to trade out this person so that I get the happiness I'm looking for, so that I get the feelings that I want, so that I get the fulfillment and the joy and the purpose I'm looking for. I got to trade out the person. And at that point, it becomes really easy to justify cheating because that's how I'll get these feelings back. That's where I'll find happiness and fulfillment. Or it becomes a lot easier to swallow divorce at that point too. I just got to trade out the person, not the expectation. Now there's reasons for that. There's reasons when marriages fall apart, but a lot of times, let's start with our priorities. Maybe it's not the person, but we got our priorities wrong. We put them in a spot that they can't hold up to, or we put them too low. That's the other spot too. Man, if we want to see transformation happen in Northern Colorado, if we want to see our own personal circles of influence come to saving faith in Christ, then you and I, we got to model this as individuals and a church, putting Jesus first. Because a church that doesn't prioritize Jesus first is a church that eventually will not exist anymore. Let me give you an example. There was a church in the city of Ephesus. This is actually written about in the New Testament. There's a book of the Bible called the Book of Ephesians. It's a letter written to this church. Here's the gist of it. This church was killing it. They were killing it. They were a model church. Healthy, unified, they're reaching all kinds of people. The city they were in was getting transformed for the better because they were there, exactly like what we want to see happen in NoCo because LifeBridge is here. They were multiplying and multiplying, making more disciples. They were training up leaders, equipping them, unleashing them, and to make everything better around them. This church was awesome. There was a vibe there. These are the people that you wanted to run with. It was awesome. But then something happened. They stopped being relevant. They stopped being effective. They stopped multiplying. They stopped being a blessing to the city. And then eventually, we don't know the exact date, the church died. Didn't exist anymore. Like, what happened? Jesus actually gave them a warning about this in Revelation 2. He says to the church in Ephesus, he says, hey, Ephesians, you've abandoned your first love. Meaning, you're not putting me as your first priority and pursuit anymore. That's why they became irrelevant, ineffective, and eventually non-existent, because they weren't giving Jesus the gold medal. So for us as a church, LifeBridge, Jesus gets our gold medal. He's our first priority and our first pursuit, even if it costs us something. But here's what's really cool about this. If we get this right, if we get the priorities right, if Jesus is in our top spot, everything else at that point can fall into place. And if you get the top spot wrong, nothing else is gonna be in the right spot and everything's gonna be a mess. And there's gonna be heartache and chaos and frustration. But if Jesus is number one, still take some prioritizing after that, but everything can fall into place and actually be in a spot where it thrives and you enjoy it even more. Like, so for me, Jesus gets my gold medal, then it's Kelly. If those things are number one and number two, then my marriage and my family can actually thrive. Jesus gets the gold medal, family gets the silver. Kelly and then my kids. And if you're not married yet, maybe you want to get married one day, this means your extended family or your church family or your close friends. You're actually in a great spot right now if you're single to set this priority up now in your life so that when you do have a family one day, man, this is already part of who you are. Jesus gets the gold, family gets the silver. Not higher, not lower. And if they're lower, if they come in lower than second place, they're gonna know about it. Men, this specifically applies to us. I think more so than women. I think you guys do a better job at this than we do. Men, it is so easy for us to prioritize something above our wives and kids. Specifically, it's so much easier to prioritize our work over our families. Man, it's easy to do that. And if you do that, you will damage those relationships. It'll chip away at them over time. And eventually there's gonna be a divide there that you may not be able to close. So let me just be really direct with you. Who cares if you're killing it at work if your work is killing your family? I mean, is your career really that important that you would be willing to trade your family for that? And I think all of us would say, no, we're not making that trade. Of course, no, we're not gonna do that. We wouldn't make that trade, not all at once. But when we pick work over family over and over and over again, little choices, it's a daily choice. It chips away at it over and over again, and eventually that relationship, it's gone. And then you wake up one day and you realize, I did trade it, and you can't get it back. So don't put your work over your families. It's not worth it. They're not gonna remember the promotion that you're working for. They're not gonna remember the bump in pay raise. Cool, yeah, you might get to have some nicer stuff at home. You might get to go on some vacation, but is it worth it at 85 hours a week? Don't make that trade. There's a great example of this on our staff who did this the right way. I learned about this a couple days ago. Many of you know Kevin King. He's been here for 17 years. He's our operations pastor. Kevin is an excellent husband. He's an excellent father. His kids are grown. He loves Jesus. Whenever you talk to Kevin, it's just obvious. 2 minutes into your conversation, you can realize, oh, this guy's been with Jesus. He knows Jesus. Well, Kevin's got a son. He's got 2 daughters and a son. And every year with his son, he goes on an elk hunt, just the two of them. They've been doing this for years. It's a way to keep his relationship with his son strong. He invests in his son this way. They get to be in the mountains by themselves, shoot an animal and eat it. That's pretty awesome, right? That's great. Like, guys, we love that kind of stuff. Well, this year, Evan's grown. He's got his own family. He's a cop around here. So his schedule is what it is. The only week that they can go on their elk hunt that they go on every year is the same week that we have a leadership conference that we're going to as some of our staff. So some of our staff is gonna go to a leadership conference in Florida. That week he's going on his elk hunt. And it's gonna be an awesome conference. We're gonna get sharpened, we're gonna invest in each other. There's some chemistry that will get developed. There's a networking with other churches. It's gonna be fantastic. It's an investment in our staff. It's gonna be good for us as a church. But Kevin's got a choice. Do I go to this conference that's gonna be beneficial to me, that's gonna be beneficial to LifeBridge because it's gonna make him better? If he's better, it makes all of us better. Or do I take that week and go spend it with my son that nobody else will know about? You would have never known about it unless I just told you this. And invest in him. Kevin's going on the elk hunt. He's not going to the conference. He made that choice because he's going for the bronze. One of the things that I have, like one of my personal goals is that, and man, there are times where I think I'm doing this well and there's times where I'm not. And Kelly can point out to you when I'm not, is that I want the people that are closest to me in my life to be the ones that respect me the most. It's easy for people on the fringes of your life to respect you, right? One, you could just fool them. Or two, they only see the surface level of things with you. But the people that are closest to you, they know the real you. They know the good, bad, and the ugly. For me, that's Kelly. And then it's my kids. I want them to respect me more than anybody else. And then it's my close friends. And then it's the guys in my small group. And then it's the people I work with on staff. Then it's you. Like, I want everyone to respect me. I want to earn everyone's respect. It's easy to get your respect because I'm on stage. I got a microphone. That's easy to gain people's respect. But you're not with me on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock when I've been frustrated all day and how I respond to my wife or my kids. She is. They are. And right now and every day from here on out to the day I die, a goal I have is that they respect me more than anybody else. There's plenty of days where I think I accomplished that. I hope I accomplished that. She's gonna tell me one way or the other. She's in here right now. And then there's days I don't, that I fail. There's no way that they're gonna respect me the most if I've got my priorities out of whack. If Jesus isn't number one, if they're not number two, and if my work isn't number three. Let your work, what you're called to, let that get the bronze medal in your life. That is so anti-American. That is so countercultural. But we've got the chance right now to change the game because I think we would all agree things aren't working out great right now around us culturally. Well, one of the problems is we elevate work and career and success and climbing the ladder above everything else. Let's change the game. Let's be a model of something different. No, we don't put that as our gold medal. We put it as our bronze. Man, I love that I get to be your lead pastor. I love that I get to be your pastor. But being the lead pastor here, that's bronze medal for me. It's not my gold. Jesus comes first, then my wife and my kids, and then this. And you don't want a lead pastor that's got it out of whack. Because one day I'm not gonna be the pastor here. And when that day happens, I'm still gonna be a follower of Jesus. I'm still gonna be Kelly's husband. And I'm still gonna be Sawyer, Georgia, and Sutton's daddy. Those things are far more important, far, far longer lasting. And if I fail at those three things, if I fail at being a follower of Christ and a husband and a dad, if I fail at those, I fail at being a pastor anyway. Like you don't want a pastor that puts being a pastor above everything else. Then I'm not worth modeling. I'm not worth imitating at all. What do you want said at your funeral? Because when you die at your funeral, your priorities are gonna be revealed pretty quickly. What do you want your spouse to say about you? What do you want your kids? What do you want your closest friends to say about you? Do you want them to say, yeah, he got that promotion, she got that promotion. They were working 80 hours a week. We never really saw them, but that was cool they got that promotion. I want my wife to say, man, he loved Jesus. And because of that, I was the biggest beneficiary of it. He screwed up on days, but I have more respect for him than anybody else does. He loved me. He respected me. He supported me. He invested in me. He made me laugh because he's an idiot a lot of the times. I want my kids to say, the thing I remember about my dad was when I would wake up and walk down the stairs, I'd see him with his cup of coffee and his Bible. And he wasn't doing it just to do it. It was his favorite part of the day. He taught me how to follow the Lord. I want my kids to say, my daddy loved my mommy. Even though he grossed me out when he would kiss her in front of us and make it really awkward on purpose, which I do and I always will do that. Actually, I love it because my dad taught me what it looks like to be a man. Or my dad taught me what a godly man looks like. So when I go and when I'm looking for a husband one day, I knew what to look for because there's a lot of guys out there that aren't worthy of my daughter. Just like there's a lot of guys out there that aren't worthy of your daughter. I want to raise up sons that know what it means to be a man, a godly man. I want to raise up a daughter who's a godly, strong leader who knows what a godly man looks like too. Where they say, my daddy invested in me. He called me out. He told me what I didn't want to hear when I needed to hear it, but he did it graciously and he did it lovingly and he pointed me to truth. He taught me who the Lord was and he showed me how to follow him. He didn't just tell me how to follow him. He showed me how to follow him. I saw how he had rich friendships that he invested in. I saw that he cared about everybody else. I saw that he made everybody else the most important thing in the world that he was talking to. I'm nowhere close to that, but that's where I'm striving for. And the only way that can happen is if Jesus gets the gold, my family gets the silver, and then my work gets the bronze. If we as a church, if we want to see transformation in Northern Colorado, this is where it starts. It starts with priorities. Now I want to see that happen. I want to see my neighbors come to Christ. I want to see friends come to Christ. I want to see you step up and use your gifts that God has given you. I want to see you use your gifts that you don't even know that you have yet. And watch how God brings a harvest through you. I want to see you become more like Jesus. I want to see more people look like Kevin King here. Man, that's going to be awesome. That's the kind of culture that we want. It's a culture that people want to be a part of, even if they can't articulate it right now. We've got an opportunity to show people who Jesus really is, to invite them into something that's real and truthful and gracious and awesome. That's the church, just by being countercultural, by valuing the right things. So man, the way we say it is we'll prioritize healthy relationships first over ministry by putting Jesus first, our family second, and work third. Jesus gets the gold, our families get the silver, LifeBridge gets the bronze. I would encourage you as an individual and as a family, adopt this value. And then this week, go rewrite it for you. Rewrite the principle. You got the principle. Go rewrite it, what it means in detail for you. And watch how that will change your individual life, how it will change your family. Your circles of influence will be influenced by it also, and you'll make our church better. Jesus, thank you that you pursued us, and that we have hope, that we have joy, that we have purpose, that we have fulfillment because we can have a relationship with you now. I pray that you would make this our priority. That you would, as a church, you would convict us if we've got our priorities out of whack. As individuals this week, would you convict us gently that if you're not in first place in our lives, or if we put something above our families too, help us see the value and crave the value of knowing you and experiencing your power, and let that be our pursuit. Let's be a church that prioritizes you above everything else, and use us to be your Keystone Species here in this part of the country. We love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.